Question 1. Regina practices intermittent fasting each morning as a way to control her weight gain. Once she wakes up, she doesn't eat anything until 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Then she allows herself to eat until 8 p.m. that night. Not eating anything before 1 p.m. serves as a what? So a behavior question, just a pure behavior question. And typically the hardest part, if you've prepared about behavior questions, is identifying what it is the question is asking about. A lot of times they will throw in different behaviors, different people in order to try and confuse you. You need to start with the question and what it's asking. The question is asking about the not eating anything before 1 p.m. So you've got a lot going on, but our focus is this idea that Regina doesn't eat anything before 1 p.m. Not eating anything before 1 p.m. serves as a what? Now, if Regina isn't eating anything, would you say she is deprived of food, or is she satiated? Well, she's deprived. Deprived means withholding, not getting enough. If I deprive you of water, you're going to become thirsty. If I deprive you of food, you're going to become hungry. And when we talk about deprivation and satiation, what we're really talking about is a motivating operation, right? Our motivating operations, they make us want something. They increase the value of a consequence or decrease it, depending on the motivating operation. In this case, Regina doesn't eat it till 1 p.m. She's very deprived of food, so her motivation to eat goes up and up and up. Once 1 p.m. hits, that's the SD, she can now eat until 8 p.m. that night. But not eating anything before 1 p.m., she's depriving herself of food, serves as a motivating operation. Which of the following examples of reinforcement does not represent a fixed schedule? Okay, a couple things here. First, what is the question asking about? Well, they're asking about fixed schedules. Second, we have this word not, right? So you have to read your questions carefully to make sure you don't miss important words like not. People read quickly, they're trying to go too fast, and they miss questions like this because they just miss this single word. So first things first, what is a fixed schedule? Well, a fixed reinforcement schedule doesn't change, right? So if we have like an FR5, no matter what, after 5 responses, we're getting reinforcement. If we say we have a fixed interval for a minute, after every 4 minutes, we're getting reinforcement. The amount of responses required or the time required is fixed. It doesn't change. So in this case, we're looking for an example that doesn't have a fixed schedule, meaning it's going to change or be an average. So A, Logan's dad will give him $1 if he rakes 3 bags of leaves. Is our reinforcement requirement fixed? Well, it is. Okay. If he rakes 3 bags of leaves, it's reinforcement. There's no indication that can change. B, the entire class can go outside and play if Bill can answer one question correctly. Bill's reinforcement requirement, his response requirement, is it fixed or variable? Well, it's fixed. He has to answer one question. There's no indication that's going to change anytime soon. C, Rachel never knows how many math problems she needs to complete to earn computer time. Okay. Do we know for sure how many math problems she needs to do or what Rachel's response requirement is? We don't. Okay. So if she doesn't know, that means it's variable, right? It's most likely changing all the time because there's no sense of being a fixed requirement to earn computer time. It's constantly changing, keeping Rachel on her toes. It's variable. And then D, your garbage is picked up at 8 a.m. on Friday. If it's consistently picked up on 8 a.m., that's a fixed time. They're not going to change. Of these, the one that does not represent a fixed schedule is C. Rachel never knows how many math problems she needs to complete to earn computer time. You're having a casual conversation with your client's dad. He mentions that your client recently started taking off their shirt in public places. You tell him you will inform your BCBA, and they will follow up. What kind of assessment did you perform? So, as an RBT, you should always be seeking information. Now, part of this is just engaging in conversation, building rapport, and finding out things from the client just casually, right? They're going to tell you about what goes on in their life. Now, when you do this kind of talking and assessment, what kind of assessment are you really performing? Is this an indirect assessment? Well, yes, right? Because what makes it indirect? Are you actually observing the client taking their shirt off in public? You're not. And when you don't directly observe the client, we are performing an indirect assessment. When you directly observe the client, it's a direct assessment. Very simple way to remember that. Okay, don't overcomplicate that. An indirect assessment, you're not actually observing the client. A direct assessment, you are directly observing the client. A functional analysis is, of course, we're manipulating antecedents and consequences to determine the function. RBTs assist on those with BCBAs. Not what you're doing here. And then event recording, you're just counting how many times something happens, or you're taking note of how many times something happens. Again, not what you're doing. You're essentially engaged in a casual interview. And an interview, of course, is an indirect assessment. My daughter could now roll over and scoot herself on the ground. I want her to work on crawling, so when she reaches for a toy she wants, I put it just out of reach, which leads to her scooting towards the toy. What type of teaching am I using? All right. Pretty straightforward question. I'd say maybe a 3 or 4 difficulty. Think about our 2 main types of teaching. We have discrete trial teaching or discrete trial training, and then we have naturalistic teaching or incidental teaching. Discrete trial teaching is very contrived, typically at a table. You're just grilling and killing, right? Naturalistic teaching and incidental teaching, we are taking advantage of naturally occurring teaching and learning opportunities. So what am I doing here? Well, when my daughter reaches for a toy, I take advantage of that situation, move it a little out of reach, and make her scoot towards the toy. Out at the table, I'm not running the same drill over and over again. I'm only doing it when the opportunity presents itself. That's what makes it naturalistic. So what type of teaching am I using? A, discrete trial teaching. No, this is not happening rapidly. I'm not doing many trials in a row. What I'm doing is naturally teaching this skill. I'm waiting for the opportunity for the incident to occur and then taking advantage of it. It isn't functional communication training. I'm not teaching her to communicate anything to me. And receptive instruction training, I'm not giving her receptive instructions. I'm simply sitting there, watching her, playing with her. Once she reaches for a toy, I slightly move it, and then we just sit there, play, and wait for the incident to occur. If you're contriving and running multiple trials in a row, you're not really naturally teaching. Okay, that's more discrete trial. Naturally is just incidental, right? We're waiting for a incident or a opening or an opportunity to teach naturally. What type of teaching am I using? Naturalistic teaching. Jay's client is working on transitioning back to the table from their break. If they transition appropriately, they receive a bonus token. After that, they can lose the bonus token if attempting to leave the table without permission. Losing the bonus token is also known as what? Okay, think about what we are doing here. Right? And if you've been studying and preparing, you're going to just immediately get this, and that's great, right? The more you study, you're going to find some of these questions become easier and easier, and it's a great feeling to have. It means you're moving forward. It means you're making progress. It means you're learning. So if you know this one immediately, that's awesome. If not, let's walk through it, right? So what are we doing? Well, we're giving this client a bonus token. Once they get that bonus token, they have the opportunity to lose the bonus token, taking it away if they leave the table without permission. So losing the bonus token is known as a response cost. Yes, that's a response cost. Removing a stimuli, removing a token, removing something in response to a behavior is a response cost. So don't pick A and move on. Let's keep looking, right? Is this also negative reinforcement? Well, it's not. We don't want to reinforce leaving the table without permission, right? Response cost is a form of negative punishment. We're trying to remove something in order to decrease a behavior. So losing the bonus token is going to be a response cost procedure and also negative punishment, because negative punishment is response cost. Response cost is negative punishment. So losing the bonus token is D, both A and C. You pick up a box full of toys and other stimuli from Goodwill. There are several different items, but you want to create a preference hierarchy for your client. What is the best way to do this? Okay, the dead giveaway here, we had a similar question recently on another one of our practices, is we want to create a preference hierarchy. And if we want to create a preference hierarchy, the one single best way to do it, according to all the literature and all our ABA study materials and the Cooper book and everything else, the best way to create a preference hierarchy is through a forced choice or a paired choice assessment. Because with a paired choice and a forced choice assessment, we are actually taking each stimuli and comparing it to all other stimuli. Really the only assessment that does that, comparing them directly to one another. Even with multiple stimulus, we're either removing it altogether or we're replacing all the other stimuli. Okay, so we're not really getting a great comparison. With a paired choice or a forced choice, we're actually taking all the stimuli, comparing them within each other, okay, and then making this hierarchy of preference. So if you want to create a preference hierarchy for your clients, you're going to want to use a paired choice assessment. A client is playing Zynga with his technician. Another client walks in the room and asks if he can join, but says he does not know how to play. First client shows him the different pieces and where to put them. Second client watches and performs the necessary actions. First client is engaging in what? Kind of a higher level question, maybe, but as an RBT, you need to know the difference between modeling and imitation. And the way you remember this, right? You are the person demonstrating the skill is the model, right? Person doing the skill or copying it is imitating the model, right? So a person models, Simon says, right? Or they say, copy me, rub their head, okay? They're modeling behaviors, right? Now, true imitation is not evoked by a verbal SD, but you don't need to concern yourself with that. All you need to know is the difference between modeling and imitation. Modeling, you are demonstrating the skill of the response. Imitation, the learner or the observer is copying what you're doing. So in this case, the first client shows the different pieces and where to put them. Second client watches and performs the necessary actions. The first client is engaging in modeling. He's not imitating. The second client is imitating the first client. First client is not shaping. He's not reinforcing approximations. And he's not teaching the second client any communication skills. So again, the first client is modeling. Second client is imitating. Got to know the difference between modeling and imitation. Which of the following items would be the least practical to use as a generalized conditioned reinforcer? With GCR, the most common one we use in ABA is a token. The most common one just in day-to-day life is probably money, right? And with a generalized conditioned reinforcer, it's a stimuli or an item you can just carry around with you and reinforce many, many different behaviors with it. What makes tokens so valuable? Okay, because we exchange tokens, but you can have tokens all the time, right? You can constantly use them as reinforcers. So, which of the following items would be the least practical to use as a generalized conditioned reinforcer? A token. A token is a great generalized conditioned reinforcer because we can carry it around with us. We can reinforce a lot of different behaviors. B, a dollar bill. A dollar bill is great too. If we can afford it, nothing wrong with using a dollar bill as a generalized conditioned reinforcer. What about a PlayStation 5? The problem with a PlayStation 5 is it's not practical to carry around and use for a bunch of different behaviors. Now, stickers will be great as well. Now, if you want to use tokens and dollar bills and stickers and have your learner exchange them for a PlayStation 5 will make a great backup reinforcer. But just as a generalized condition reinforcer, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Not practical. It's not easy to carry around. Don't use it. Okay. So the least practical as a GCR would be C, a PlayStation 5. And then practitioners in ABA are typically required to maintain records and documents for how long? Just kind of a rote learning question. Okay. This is a standard across our field, BCBAs, RBTs, anybody who's keeping documents. Typically, you want to hold them for not 1 year, not 5 years, but 7 years. It's kind of the industry standard.